The marble floors echoed under the sharp click of designer heels as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez stepped into the Capitol rotunda. Her fingers, trembling slightly despite her public poise, clutched a manila folder labeled Confrontation. The air inside the building was thick, not with heat, but with tension. Something was off. Something was about to explode. Outside, a storm was rolling in over Washington, D.C., the sky a slate gray. Clouds churning with the same friction that simmered inside the chamber walls. Thunder rumbled faintly in the distance, as if foreshadowing the coming storm between two women who, in another life, might have been allies, or even friends. But this wasn't that life. Tulsi Gabbard stood in the hallway, just outside the closed doors of the Judiciary Committee room. She wore a quiet expression, like a soldier returned from war who'd seen too much to be surprised by anything anymore. Her dark hair was pulled back into a modest braid, and her eyes, sharp, steady, calm, scanned the room, watching, waiting. The silence shattered when AOC barked, "Security! I want her removed, now." The words cut through the air like a slap, drawing heads around the corridor. Tulsi didn't flinch. She didn't raise her voice. She simply stepped forward. Then, she did this. But to understand that moment, we need to rewind the clock. Just 2 weeks earlier, Tulsi had flown in from her home in Hawaii for what was supposed to be a brief visit. A speaking engagement at Georgetown and a quiet reunion with old friends. Politics, as far as she knew, was in the rearview mirror. She'd stepped back after 2020 for a reason. She wanted peace, purpose, a deeper connection to something real. But the Capitol had a way of pulling people back in. She had no idea what was waiting for her. At the same time, AOC had been fighting her own battles. Though hailed as the face of a progressive movement, Alexandria carried the weight of impossible expectations. Every tweet dissected, every misstep amplified, every intention questioned. In recent weeks, rumors had swirled about a sweeping piece of surveillance legislation buried inside a defense spending bill. A bill that would quietly authorize mass data collection under the guise of national security. AOC had uncovered it, and she was livid. Behind closed doors, she'd fought to remove the clause, argued with staffers, pleaded with colleagues. But the higher she climbed, the more the oxygen thinned. And now, she believed someone was sabotaging the effort. Someone inside the building. A leak. A name had surfaced. Tulsi Gabbard. That's when the folder landed on AOC's desk. It came anonymously, no return address. Inside was a series of messages, allegedly between Tulsi and a foreign journalist, hinting that she knew about the surveillance clause and was planning to blow it open in a podcast interview. It wasn't treason. Not exactly. But it was enough to paint her as a threat. AOC didn't hesitate. She told security to remove Tulsi from the building. But what no one expected was what Tulsi would do next. As the two women faced off in the hallway, the storm outside cracked open, lightning flashing across the Capitol dome. Security approached, 2 men in black suits with earpieces and heavy expressions. But Tulsi didn't back down. Instead, she calmly reached into her bag and pulled out a slim, black USB drive. "I think you should see this," she said, extending it toward AOC. Her voice was low even. "Before you make a mistake you can't take back." The men looked to Alexandria for waiting orders. For a moment AOC stared at Tulsi, seeing not an enemy, but a mirror. Another woman who'd clawed her way into a broken system, trying to change it from within. Pride warred with instinct. But then she nodded, almost imperceptibly. "Let her speak," she said. They stepped into a side room. Dim, silent, heavy with the scent of old wood and tobacco ghosts from centuries past. Tulsi plugged the drive into a laptop. A video played. It wasn't what AOC expected. The footage showed a private meeting, high-ranking officials discussing the bill's surveillance clause. But more than that, it revealed a trap. The clause wasn't designed to protect Americans. It was a Trojan horse, placed by a defense contractor with deep ties to a private data mining firm. It would have given them direct access to millions of personal records, phone calls, texts, GPS data, under the flag of patriotism. And Tulsi, she wasn't leaking it. She was investigating it. "I didn't come here to fight you," Tulsi said, her voice hushed, raw. "I came to warn you. They're using us. All of us." That was the turning point. What followed was a whirlwind. The two women, once pitted as rivals in media narratives and political debates, began to meet in secret. They didn't always agree. In fact, they argued often about methods, about strategy, about whether the system could truly be changed from within. But their common enemy was bigger than ideology. The bill was scheduled to go to a vote in 10 days, and it would pass unless someone blew the whistle publicly. Enter Subplot 1, the journalist. A young, tenacious reporter named Camille Leong had been chasing whispers about the surveillance clause for months. She'd nearly lost her job trying to pitch the story to corporate media. Editors told her to back off. Too dangerous. Too speculative. But Camille wasn't done. When Tulsi reached out, Camille saw the opportunity of a lifetime, and a story that could cost her everything. Together, they planned a leak. And Subplot 2, the betrayal. AOC's trusted aide, Marcus, had been feeding information to a lobbying group behind the defense bill. When she discovered it, it shattered her. Marcus had been with her since the Bronx. He was family. Or so she thought. The betrayal cut deep, and for the first time, AOC considered stepping down. She'd lost faith, not in the fight, but in her ability to choose the right people. But Tulsi reminded her of something she'd once said on a debate stage. "They may have the money, but we have the people. You don't need perfect people." Tulsi said quietly, "You need courageous ones." The climax came fast. On the morning of the vote, Camille published the story, names, documents, everything. It went viral in minutes. Protests exploded outside the Capitol. The hashtag #FiasOnSurveillance trended globally. Inside, AOC stood on the House floor, fire in her voice, spine like steel. She invoked the story of whistleblowers, the Constitution, the betrayal of trust, and called for an emergency motion to strike the clause from the bill. It passed by 2 votes. Tulsi watched from the gallery, anonymous among the crowd. Her eyes welled, not with victory, but with hope. For the first time in a long time, she believed the system might still be salvageable. Not perfect, but worth fighting for. AOC didn't wave, didn't look up. But as she exited the chamber, she glanced back once, just once, and nodded. That night, the storm cleared. The air was still heavy, but the rain had stopped. Tulsi walked alone through the National Mall, her boots crunching wet gravel. She wasn't going back to politics, not in the way people expected. But she had purpose again, truth to tell, corruption to expose. The fight wasn't over, it had just begun. And Alexandria, she returned to her office, dropped the folder labeled Confrontation into a shredder, and opened her laptop. A new email was waiting. No subject, no sender, just a single sentence. "This won't be the last bill." She closed the lid and smiled. The lesson. Courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it looks like restraint, a pause, a second glance, an open mind. Sometimes it looks like 2 enemies realizing they've been fighting the same fight all along. And sometimes it looks like doing the right thing even when everyone is watching. And especially when no one is. Because in a world built on lies, The truth is the most dangerous weapon of all. And that day, they used it, together.